Ozark CW starts now.
First at 9, dozens gathered in Christian County tonight to question local law enforcement about surveillance cameras. There is renewed concern over these license plate readers now that a Joplin police officer is under investigation for misusing the tech. Now, we told you about that case earlier this week. He's accused of using it to track one driver's license plate nearly 400 times and is now no longer with the department. Now, after that misuse case, some in Christian County are wondering about the local law enforcement policies for these license plate readers. Emma McDarris spoke to organizers about the push for new state laws. Emma?
Rob, here in Ozark, there are 2 flock safety cameras here at the Highway CC intersection with US 65. The Missouri Republican Assembly hosted a public forum in Christian County to discuss what some are calling the new big brother. Sanders, a U.S. Army veteran and member of the Christian County, Missouri Republican Society, says he only heard about flock cameras in the past year. If you're just hearing about them, they're pole-mounted cameras. They can read license plate and create a fingerprint to track cars. Sanders is worried they could be abused. He says there's too little policy and legislation restricting their use.
Didn't really think too much about them until I started to watch some of the videos and some of the vulnerabilities of the actual system itself. Concerned about government overreach, of course, made me dig a little bit deeper.
Ozark Police and the Christian County Sheriff's Office both outlined their flock policies.
We have a disciplinary policy that applies to anything that our officers may do, may misuse, may abuse, anything like that.
A flock representative directed concerned citizens to the company's privacy page. One section says the company doesn't use facial recognition or store biometric data. Sanders hopes growing statewide concern will prompt action. He'd like lawmakers to pass more restrictive legislation for these license plate readers.
Other than the expansion of constant surveillance or mass surveillance, if it's limited by state law and it's limited by the police policies and it is constitutional, then I don't have a problem with it.
Many say that they're more worried about the private company and their cybersecurity of the cameras than local law enforcement misuse. In Ozark, Emma McDarris, KY3 News.